If you were under the impression that the logistical saga regarding the warehouse inventory was the final act in Meghan Markle's latest entrepreneurial venture, you really need to reassess the situation because the true spectacle is only just getting started. Picture a scenario where online threads are unraveling with speculation and insider leaks are dripping out slowly, only for Meghan to launch a strategic counter-narrative with the precision of a seasoned media veteran. This implies that we are not merely witnessing standard damage control, but rather a full-scale battle for the overarching storyline, where every subsequent move is more breathless and calculated than the last. The stage seems set by hushed rumors of unsold stock, whispers that quickly morphed into a digital storm as amateur sleuths began analyzing timelines and inventory with forensic intensity. From my perspective, this kind of public scrutiny is inevitable for celebrity brands, as the gap between projected success and operational reality is often where the most interesting conflicts arise. Suddenly, a narrative emerges in major publications that often serve as a friendly platform for the Sussexes, carrying a tone that mixes disbelief with a defiant correction of the record. We are being told that what appears to be a facility full of stagnant product is actually evidence of overwhelming demand, a signal that the brand is merely staging itself for a massive global takeover. Almost overnight, figures that might have looked problematic are reimagined as a badge of honor, as if ordering massive quantities and withholding them from the public were part of some grand, sophisticated master plan. It is a tactic ripped straight from the modern celebrity playbook. Do not explain the error. Simply reframe the context and, above all else, never admit that the initial rollout faced any hurdles. And I believe this pivot is risky because today's consumers are incredibly savvy. They understand supply chains better than ever, and trying to spin a logistical jam as a marketing genius move can often backfire if the product doesn't eventually materialize. However, the plot thickens significantly when anonymous sources, who sound suspiciously like they are sticking to a corporate script, claim that the jam is not gathering dust, but is actually flying off the shelves in heroic quantities. The narrative attempts to become more compelling by suggesting massive sales figures. Yet these claims of selling hundreds of thousands of units often clash with the lack of verified purchase receipts on social media. It is the kind of statistical achievement that would usually be plastered across every press release and interview. Yet there was complete radio silence until the negative reports about inventory spreadsheets began to circulate in the tabloids. There was no humble brag, no victory lap, and no celebration of reaching sales milestones until the numbers threatened to tell a less flattering story about the brand's momentum. This silence is deafening and raises a very tempting question. If nearly 1 million jars had truly found their way into the hands of adoring customers, the internet would theoretically be flooded with reviews and unboxing videos by now. We would expect to see an avalanche of hashtags, a parade of influencers posting breakfast spreads, and glossy video montages set to trending audio. But instead, the digital footprint of the product remains surprisingly faint. Instead of organic engagement, what we seem to be getting is a hurried rewrite of events, a frantic attempt to convince the public that the visual evidence of inactivity is merely a misunderstood snapshot of runaway success. The contradictions seem to be piling up faster than the alleged inventory, creating a disconnect between the brand's claims and the observable reality in the marketplace. Heritage brands that have survived decades of shifting tastes do not typically gamble on massive initial inventories of perishable goods without a solid distribution network already in place. In my opinion, true luxury branding relies on scarcity that feels authentic, whereas this situation feels more like a disconnect between ambition and execution, which is a common pitfall for personalities transitioning into retail. Furthermore, established luxury brands rarely resort to sliding jars quietly onto the shelves of obscure bookstores in hopes that the placement looks organic rather than desperate. That behavior does not resemble the confident stride of a retail titan. Rather, it looks like the stealthy maneuvering of a business trying to move product quietly before expiration dates become a liability. The real drama here is not found in the spreadsheets or the sales figures, but in the reactive nature of the communication strategy, which often inadvertently reveals more than it conceals. The classic rule of public relations disasters is simple. It is rarely the initial mistake that causes the long-term damage, but rather the frantic cover-up and the contradictory spin that follows. It is fascinating to watch because it highlights how difficult it is to maintain a curated image when the operational side of a business fails to match the polished exterior that the public expects from a royal adjacent brand. Meghan's response has not been to brush off the critics with humor or simply let the sales figures speak for themselves, which is usually the most effective way to silence doubters. Instead, it seems that every media outlet receives a slightly different variation of the truth, with each explanation becoming more elaborate and complex than the one before it. One day, it is framed as a supply chain miracle. The next, it is a lesson in global logistics. And invariably, it is presented as a misunderstanding caused by outside observers lacking the full context. We are living in the era of the celebrity brand, where every stumble is viewed as an opportunity for reinvention, and every critique is a chance to craft a fresh narrative. Yet, despite all the talk of resilience and visionary planning, there is a growing sense of urgency in how frequently the story shifts, suggesting a team that is scrambling to stay ahead of the news cycle. The more the team insists that everything is proceeding exactly according to plan, the more it appears to be a frantic attempt to control a narrative that is slowly slipping out of their grasp. It is a spectacle and a real-time lesson in how the truth can be massaged, spun, and repackaged for public consumption, even when the visual evidence suggests otherwise. However, despite all the public relations barrages and carefully placed leaks, the one thing that never changes is the underlying math of retail and inventory management. Warehouses are indifferent to brand strategy or Instagram engagement. If the shelves are groaning under the weight of stock, no amount of brilliant storytelling can physically move those units. There is an almost Shakespearean irony in this situation. The harder the team pushes to prove their success, the more they reveal the anxiety simmering just beneath the surface. Confidence does not need to constantly explain itself. nor does it need to launch counterattacks or weave elaborate tales to justify its existence to the general public. If the brand were truly conquering the market one jar at a time, the focus would naturally be on the future, on new product launches, and on expanding into new territories. Instead, every headline seems to be a reminder of the past and a response to questions that simply refuse to fade away, keeping the brand stuck in a defensive posture. This is a fascinating moment in the tega of celebrity entrepreneurship, where the line between reality and perception is blurrier than ever before. We are watching in real time as a brand attempts to rewrite its own history, trying to convert a potential public relations crisis into a narrative triumph through sheer force of will. Whether this strategy works remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. This business spectacle is far from reaching its conclusion. As the dust settles and the next plot twist lurks around the corner, the world is left wondering if this is the start of a redemption arc or just another act in an endless drama. For Meghan Markle, the stakes could not be higher because every move is scrutinized, every statement is dissected, and the pressure to deliver a win is immense. Ultimately, the truth may not lie in the numbers or the headlines, but in whether the public is willing to believe the story being told, or if they will continue to ask uncomfortable questions long after the PR machine has moved on. As long as questions about inventory remain and explanations continue to evolve, you can bet the world will keep watching, waiting, and wondering what strategic pivot will come next.